An Impact Wrestling star requests his release from the company. Impact Wrestling on Access TV draws its highest viewership in almost one full year. And now that the 90-day non-compete clauses of those WWE superstars, including the likes of Karrion Kross and Keith Lee, have expired, could we see some more stars on their way to Impact Wrestling? All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is plenty of news to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling. So let's start off talking about Larry D announcing he has requested his release from Impact Wrestling. Now, Larry D, aka Lawrence D, whatever you want to call him, that was a whole in that investigation as to who attacked Johnny Bravo, etc., etc. He has requested his release from Impact Wrestling. Now, after not being used for more than a month now, Larry D took to Twitter yesterday and revealed that he has asked Impact Wrestling officials to release him from his contract. He noted that he's eager to make waves with other companies and will be doing media to explain his release from Impact in the coming weeks. He said, quote, "I love Impact Wrestling with all my heart. I've been able to achieve things I'd never imagine. With heavy heart, I've requested my release and am eager to make waves in other markets. I will be accepting podcasts, interviews, and other media in the coming weeks. Much love, all let's work." So you never know. Maybe we could get a Larry D interview here on the channel. If you would like to see that, let me know in the comment section below. Maybe we can reach out to Larry D. Now, there's no word yet on if Impact Wrestling is going to grant his release. We'll keep you updated as to, once this is confirmed, we'll talk about it obviously more in depth, but I wouldn't see any reason why they wouldn't. It was kind of the same with his former Triple XL tag team partner, AC Romero, in the sense that he requested his release. It took a while, but eventually he got it. Larry D began using his Lawrence D alter ego on the November 25th Wrestle House 2 edition of Impact. He lost to Johnny Swinger that night and then wrestled Rohit Raju to a no contest on the December 10th Impact Wrestling show due to an attack by Josh Alexander. Of course, Rohit Raju is now no longer with Impact Wrestling. He's been appearing at recent AEW Dark television tapings. Now, Larry then competed at the Throwback Throwdown 2 special event in December, performing as Badlands Bart against Hard Harry Hall, which was Jake something. Bart took a loss to Harry in a four corners bull rope match, and that was Larry's final match. Now, Larry has continued to work for various independent promotions such as AAW and IWA-MS. Now, Larry made his Impact Wrestling debut on October 19, 2019, losing to AC Romero in the main event at the All Glory Special. Both men would then sign with Impact Wrestling and ended up forming the tag team, as I mentioned previously, called Triple XL. It had been reported that they had signed 3-year deals with Impact Wrestling at the time. Romero requested his release from Impact Wrestling back on August 30 and was granted the release by Impact Wrestling on October 12. So as I mentioned previously, we might be looking at a situation similar to AC Romero in the sense that Larry D's requested it. It might take a while before it's official, but we'll have to wait and see. But Larry D as well, he got a response from a fan on social media and said, the fan said, quote, "This, I love when people have good things to say about their place of work." And Larry D said, "Nothing but love for Impact Wrestling." So I don't think it's acrimonious by any stretch of the imagination. I would assume it's just like many things, right? When it comes to, moving on, it's probably just Larry D's felt that it's the right time to move on. He's not exactly a totally featured player in Impact Wrestling. He could have probably stayed and he would probably continue doing stuff that he's been doing. Maybe one match per television taping, and that's 2 days of television tapings. Maybe he would appear on before the Impact as a job guy, or maybe eventually come back in a comedy skit, but he's not featured in. That's the point, isn't it, at the moment? He's certainly not featured in, and he's not doing anything big or specific. And maybe he's realized, with AC Romero not there anymore, he doesn't have the tag team to fall back on. It's just time maybe to try something else, go elsewhere. Now, I said before, when Rohit Raju left Impact Wrestling, I didn't expect him to go to AEW, so I don't even know what to think anymore. I would be really surprised if Larry D showed up in AEW. Look, when it comes to those AEW Dark television tapings, who knows? Anything's a possibility, so I wouldn't rule that out. Frankly, I see someone like Larry D, and I think that he would be way more suited to the NWA. He's the kind of wrestler that they're looking for. Billy Corgan said several times, hasn't he, that he actually wants to kind of make it or go back to a sort of a throwback era of professional wrestling with the National Wrestling Alliance, in the sense that he's looking for bigger guys. He wants to go back to that sort of 1980 vibes, where even if you weren't, a Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior type when you were this jacked up bodybuilder, he just likes big guys, basically. Just, and that was the same in the 70s and 80s, wasn't it? You just had big people. That's what Larry D is. And by all accounts, any interactions I've seen with him on social media or with fans or in interviews or anything like that, he's been nothing but welcoming and nice to his fans, and I'm sure he's the same backstage. So maybe it's just a case, as I mentioned, of him wanting to do some other stuff and him not wanting Impact to maybe have priority on his dates. I think he's probably done everything that he was going to be able to do in Impact Wrestling, so he's decided to take his talents elsewhere. As to where he'll go, as I mentioned, I could see the NWA. Obviously, he'll work the indie scene a lot as well. So good for him, and I'm excited to see what he can do best. As he mentioned, he has taken media. I've said this a couple of times before here on the channel, especially when it comes to Impact Wrestling, because I know a lot of you guys really enjoy the Impact Wrestling content we provide here on the channel, and the Impact Wrestling news and the deep dives and the analysis and the watch-alongs and the post-shows that we do when it comes to Impact. So let me know in the comment section below if you want to see us do interviews with Impact Wrestling talents. I've kind of thought about doing it before. I wasn't sure if it's really what you guys would want. Obviously, I know how to reach out to the Impact Wrestling media department and all that kind of stuff to do interviews. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know. Let me know in the comment section below, and we'll see if we can arrange it. But Larry D has announced he's requested his release from Impact Wrestling. As I mentioned, when it comes to if it's granted or not, we'll speak about it further on the channel. But good for him. Nothing but love for Larry D. Now let's talk about the Impact Wrestling ratings, because, I sometimes get criticized here on the channel talking about the Impact Wrestling ratings. Oh, Owen, you only talk about the ratings when the ratings are down. When they're good, you don't talk about it. And I'm not just saying this because it's myself. I'm not just saying this because I'm defending myself and it's my channel or anything like that. That's not true. I do talk about when the ratings are good. The last 2 weeks, the ratings have gone up week on week, and I've spoken about it. And I've still said maybe some critical things in terms of, and it's always going to be a critical thing when it comes to Impact Wrestling. They need way better distribution, and they need to find out if they can go live or if they can find a way where the spoilers don't leak online. But the biggest thing for them is distribution. But I don't just talk about the ratings when they're down, because they're up for the third consecutive week. And this time, Impact Wrestling has drawn a number that is on par, really, with what they were doing around this time last year, when numbers were really good for Access TV. So this is a really positive story when it comes to Impact Wrestling, the ratings, the viewership on Access TV. So when Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion Mickie James was announced for the 2022 Women's Royal Rumble match, she was announced as the reigning Impact Knockouts champion, and even, of course, entered the match with her Knockouts championship and to her Impact Wrestling music. With WWE endorsing Mickie James and Impact Wrestling on their second biggest show of the year, fans were curious as to whether or not it would lead to an increase in viewership for Impact Wrestling. Well, it looks like it has. It looks like this sort of fringe relationship, if you will, with WWE has paid off big time when it comes to Impact. Per Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, there was indeed a viewership bump for Impact Wrestling, with last week's show drawing 182,000 viewers and scoring a 0.05 in the key 18 to 49 demographic. To put this in context, this was the highest viewed episode of the show since February 16th, 2021. Yes, we're talking nearly a full calendar year. This was the highest viewed episode of Impact Wrestling in nearly 12 months. With Mickie entering the Rumble with a Knockouts Championship, it remains to be seen if more viewers are going to tune into this week's show. And it must be pointed out too, this is the third consecutive week that we have seen the viewership steadily rise. So there's lots to get into to that one. I think, again, I don't know if it's all because of the WWE Mickie James appearing in the Rumble. I think that's part of it. I do think that's probably part of it there. And I think that those will be saying, wow, because I've seen some people say, I've seen WWE have already given Impact Wrestling way more than the AEW working relationship ever did, which I don't buy into, to be honest with you. The reason I don't buy into that is because, was the AEW and Impact Wrestling working relationship perfect? Absolutely not. It was not absolutely perfect, and actually coming out of the end of it, Impact Wrestling was lower in the ratings than it was previously. However, when it started off, Kenny Omega's debut episode on Access TV is the highest viewed show that they've done since they moved to Access TV. They had Impact Rebellion, which is the highest purchased pay-per-view, or the biggest buy rate of a pay-per-view that Impact Wrestling have done since Anthem purchased them in 2017. So AEW helped Impact Wrestling do essentially record business for Anthem TV. Not record business overall, because they're never going to get back to those days of Spike or anything like that. Who knows? But I don't think so. Not in the near future anyway. But certainly AEW, the working relationship, did have its benefits. And again, it did have its downside. I don't think it was perfect at all. But we've seen this, again, I don't even know if you would call it a working relationship between WWE and Impact Wrestling. Mickie James was in the Rumble. That's kind of the extent of the working relationship. Nevertheless, it has paid off, and we've got this big, for Impact, this big viewership number last night, and I think that's positive. I do. I think also I would put some of it to the Ring of Honor storyline. Honestly, I would, because coming out of Hard to Kill, this is my point. Coming out of Hard to Kill, essentially the 3 weeks after the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, which is where the Ring of Honor Invasion storyline first debuted, we have seen the viewership go up every single week. And I think that's a massive positive. I think that's something that Impact Wrestling must be looking at and going, something's working here. And whether it is, again, the Mickie James affiliation with WWE, because again, that was about 3 weeks ago. It was just before Hard to Kill that was announced, so the timelines do match up there. But I think it would be naive to say it's just because of that. And as I spoke about earlier, I think the really curious thing now is coming out of the Rumble, because it's one thing that's, Pat McAfee saying on SmackDown, Mickie James, the Impact Knockouts champion. It's another thing that Mickie James came out of the Royal Rumble with her Impact Wrestling music, with the Impact Knockouts championship, and was acknowledged as an Impact Wrestling wrestler. So it's going to be curious to see if we see maybe an even bigger number this week, or if it goes down a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. Nevertheless, I think it's good news for Impact Wrestling. I don't know if it's sustainable, and that would be the thing to point out too. Is this sustainable? Because we attributed this number last year, when it was around this time last year, we attributed this number to, one, the AEW working relationship, because that big number that they did in February 16th, 2021, I believe is around the same time that Matt Hardy made his debut, returned to Impact Wrestling and Private Party with there. I think it's around that period of time. So it'll be interesting to see, is this sustainable without this WWE affiliation? Is it sustainable when it comes to spoilers? Because again, you have to remember as well, they did this number. This is why it's arguably even more impressive that they did this number with a show that everyone knew the results to. This time last year, the reason, in my opinion, why the numbers were so high up was because of the AEW working relationship, yes, but also because nobody knew what was going to happen on the shows. There weren't any spoilers. This time, you've got this kind of, again, fringe relationship, shall we call it, fringe relationship when it comes to WWE, but everyone knew the results of this show. It was easy to find. We spoke about it, and yet people wanted to tune in anyway. So I think that's a big positive for Impact. Whether it or not it's sustainable, I don't know. But I think it's a great number for Impact, and it's something to work towards. And again, in my opinion, it's something that I would say maybe this Ring of Honor Invasion storyline is working. And from an Impact Wrestling perspective, they're like, maybe we need to call up WWE and say, hey, do you need any more talent? Do you want to work together? Because it's benefiting us to a point. And again, it's the same with the AEW working relationship. The criticisms and the issues with Access TV are still there. There is still absolutely a ceiling to these numbers. The ceiling was Kenny Omega's debut episode, which was 221,000, I think, something like that. That's the ceiling. I don't know if they're even capable of doing any more. So it doesn't mean that Impact Wrestling should be looking at it going, actually, you know what, we can still do good numbers on Access TV. We shouldn't be looking at a better distribution deal. They should absolutely still be looking at a better distribution deal, but this is a positive, and I think those in Impact Wrestling should be very happy with it. Finally, I want to talk about these free agents that are now they're now officially free agents, ex-WWE superstars, but 10 superstars released by WWE last November are now officially free agents. Now, of course, this list includes the likes of Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, Mia Yim, Ember Moon, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Harry Smith, Oni Lorcan, Gran Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, Eva Marie, and Nia Jax. There were some other names, of course, that were released from NXT, Frankie Monet, B-Fab, Scarlett Bordeaux, Trey Baxter, Jesse Camille, Jeet Ryan, Palmer, Zayda Ramia, and Katrina Cortez, they only had 30-day non-compete clauses, so actually they became free agents back in December, hence why you've seen Trey Baxter back in Impact Wrestling. But it's those Big Ten, the guys that were on the main roster, they're now officially free agents. So again, Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, Mia Yim, Ember Moon, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Oni Lorcan, Gran Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, Eva Marie, and Nia Jax. Now, of course, we know none of those names are going to be appearing on Impact Wrestling in the next couple of weeks because we know the shows have been taped up to then. But the next set of TV tapings is what? In a couple of weeks' time when it comes to the No Surrender TV tapings and then taping the television surrounding that. So I wanted to do a quick, and I probably will do this way more in depth, probably tomorrow, and give my reasons on it. But I wanted to give who do I think is going to appear? Who do I think possibly could appear at the next set of Impact Wrestling television tapings? Karrion Kross, we know, is not going to happen. There is a lot of bad blood there, especially when it comes to Scarlett Bordeaux and all that kind of stuff in Impact Wrestling and possible litigation. That isn't happening. Keith Lee, I think Keith Lee coming to Impact Wrestling will be ruled out possibly even tonight on TBS. I think there's a real high chance he could appear in AEW. Mia Yim's an interesting one. I know some people will say, well, if Keith Lee's going to AEW, then Mia Yim would go with him. I could see Mia Yim in AEW, but I could also see her in Impact. She's wrestled in Impact Wrestling before. So, and I always say this when it comes to, females, if they've got the choice to go to either AEW or Impact Wrestling, for me, it's Impact Wrestling every single day of the week. Yes, the platform isn't as big, but the opportunity is even bigger. Mickie James was in the Royal Rumble, and a lot of people are talking about Mickie James at the moment because she's been main eventing pay-per-views with Deonna Purrazzo. They've been having Texas Death matches with Deonna Purrazzo. They've been having some of the best matches on the show. Hard to Kill was opened and closed by the Knockouts. No other company's doing that right now. Maybe WWE, but no other company's doing that right now. So if you were Mia Yim or Ember Moon, it's a difficult one because you would say, well, going to AEW, of course, you'll have a much bigger platform. Of course, you'll have a bigger platform because you're on TBS and TNT every single week. And you're performing in front of sold-out arenas or larger arenas, certainly. But if you go to Impact Wrestling, you're going to have better matches. There's going to be better opponents most of the time. And you're just going to have more of an opportunity to actually wrestle a match rather than one match per show. So it's a different one. It's a difficult one. I could see Mia Yim in Impact, but I could also see him very easily going to AEW. Davey Boy Smith Jr. is a curious one. He was doing a lot of work in All Japan before signing with WWE, and of course he never actually appeared for WWE apart from a dark match in July last year. Where could I see him? I could absolutely see him in Impact. I don't know if he would go to AEW. Maybe in the sense of, because they've got the Owen Hart Cup coming up, and obviously that's close to the family. That makes a lot of sense that he might be involved in that. So I could see that one possibly. People like Oni Lorcan, absolutely would. I could see him more likely coming into Impact. If he does go to AEW, it's on AEW Dark or Dark Elevation. Gran Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, to me, are perfect for the X Division. I think they suit that so well, and I think actually there's a high chance they do come to Impact. So I'd be interested to see them come in. Again, even if it's not in the X Division, they could be a tag team. So I think that's a possibility as well. Eva Marie is not going to be anywhere apart from that isn't WWE. And Nia Jax, I don't think has any interest in pro wrestling in general, let alone Impact. She doesn't have any interest in WWE. I mean, she told him to basically F off when they called her to come back for the Rumble. So I don't see that one happening. But again, we'll talk about this more in depth probably tomorrow, but it was worth pointing out because we could see at least one of those names appear on AEW Dynamite tonight. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.